also should be reconsidered.
Thank you very much. माननीय मंत्री जी. नहीं मंत्री जी बोलेंगे रिकॉर्ड में नहीं जाएगा. मंत्री जी आप शुरू कीजिए.
Sir, I rise to respond to the
मंत्री जी बोल रहे हैं.
queries and concerns of the honourable members after I moved the official amendments to the Anti-Maritime Piracy Bill 2019. First of all, sir, I would like to thank all the honourable members across the House, because I think everybody has looked at this initiative very positively. There is a broad recognition that our country requires anti-piracy legislation. It is part of our international responsibilities, and I think by and large I can see there is unanimity about the bill. I also, sir, want to particularly thank the Standing Committee. The chairman of the Standing Committee, Shri P.P. Chaudhary ji, had to leave just now because he had a Standing Committee meeting. But I want to put on record that he and his colleagues of all the parties who are members of the Standing Committee, they have made many invaluable suggestions. Out of the 18 recommendations, we have taken almost every one of them on board. And their recommendations, I want to say, have greatly helped in getting the right balance in this bill. Now, before I come, sir, to the points which were raised by individual members, I want to clarify one issue which came up, which was the question of government amendments, because I think some honourable members were either they had not seen the amendments, they were not aware of the amendments. Shri Manish Tiwari ji actually in his remarks said it was presented at very short notice. I want to put on record that actually government amendments were moved in the last session, in the monsoon session. They were moved in the business which is there for the 3rd, 4th and 5th of August, and the amendments were actually uploaded on July 22nd. That was in the last session. In this session, before we had the debate on the bill, there was again an uploading of the official amendments on December 6th. So I want to be very, very clear and on the record that all that has been moved by the government side is very much available to members, and that it was our expectation they would look at it. Now, the interesting thing is, even though some honourable members perhaps could not, for whatever reason, see the amendments, actually almost everything that they said, what the honourable members said, what the Standing Committee felt, and what is the government amendment, actually converges. So it is not that we are at cross purposes with each other. Actually, most of the House is converging on pretty much the same issues, and I will address some of the issues. Before coming to individual members, sir, I'd like to focus on 3 or 4 common issues or important issues, some of which Shri Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary raised, some raised by some of the other members. And I think the most important of this relates to the death penalty issue. Now, what we have done, sir, is in the bill under section 3, 4 and 5, there is a range of punishments. There is a range of punishments which have been provided depending on the gravity of the offence and the extent of the culpability. So, for the sake of clarity, let me state that under section 3.1, whoever commits any act of piracy shall be punished with imprisonment, which may extend to imprisonment for life or fine or both. And the official amendment has provided for, has taken from the earlier punishment for life into, which was the only provision, has now actually done punishment extend to life or fine or both. Regarding death, the provision for death, under subsection 2 of section 3, earlier on there was a provision for death. Now that has been amended as per government amendment to punishment with death or with imprisonment for life if such a person is committing the act of piracy and causes death or in an attempt thereof. So I want to assure the House Speaker, sir, through you, that the concern that there will be a mandatory death sentence is no longer relevant in view of the government amendment, which actually provides for death or life imprisonment depending on the nature of the circumstances. This is in keeping with the Supreme Court pronouncement, which many honourable members also raised in their remark, which is that death should be rarest of the rare. So that flexibility is there in the amendment to the bill. We have also kept in mind that extradition, many countries will not extradite if there is a death penalty. So that flexibility is also something, and some of the other members also mentioned that in their remarks. The second issue, sir, is the issue of graded punishment. Now, there are different articles and different levels of punishment. Under Article 3.1, for committing an act of piracy, you could have up to life imprisonment. But if someone attempts to commit or aids or abets or conspires or procure, that is then can be imprisonment for a term which may go up to 10 years. So it is a lesser offence. The punishment envisaged is lesser. If someone has participated or organized or directed another person in an act of piracy, the punishment for that is 14 years. So we leave it, sir, to the court to make the judgment depending on what is the culpability of a person. Accordingly, that option for the punishment is there. Then, sir, many honourable members raised the issue of the concern about presumption. So I would like to clarify, and this was a point which the Shri P.P. Chaudhary made when he was speaking in terms of the Standing Committee recommendations. It is not an open-ended presumption. Supriya Suleji, I think, expressed that concern, that it should not be that by presuming that government has the right to take action. There are very specific conditions relating to presumption. Condition number 1 is that arms, ammunition, explosives and equipment must be recovered. Condition number 2, there is evidence of the use of force. Condition number 3, there is evidence of an intended threat. So unless these conditions, which prima facie show that some act of piracy has happened, and even there the presumption is unless the contrary is proved. So I want to say very, very clearly that this is not a case where you are presumed to be guilty unless you are proven innocent. There has to be evidence on 2 cases, or there has to be a recovery in order for the presumption to take place. So I hope honourable members are reassured in this matter. Then some members, sir, raised the question of international cooperation. Now, we have the whole purpose of the bill is also to promote international cooperation. And I think many honourable members and the Standing Committee pointed out that we have been members of UNCLOS ratified it since 1985. We have not pursued the subsequent legislation to deal with piracy offences, and it is important we are seen as a responsible international player. Today, sir, correct. So we are today members of the RECAP, which is an arrangement of 20 countries in Southeast Asia, which happens incidentally to be headed by the former Chief of our Coast Guard, Mr. Natarajan. They deal with armed robbery and piracy in Southeast Asia. We are part of the contact group on piracy of the coast of Somalia, because there is a lot of piracy out there. We have been in the Gulf of Aden. We have deployed since 2008. We have also now joined the combined maritime force based in Bahrain. Sri Manish Tiwari ji had raised that issue the matter had been under consideration, but we came to the conclusion that the benefits of joining were more than of not joining. And in fact, for the first time, one of our ships has taken part in an exercise called Operation Southern Readiness as part of the CMF. We have also engaged with regional navies. We have engaged with foreign-friendly countries. We have done EEZ surveillance. We have done coordinated patrols. We have created a maritime domain awareness system. And we have a fusion center in Gurugram, which actually gets data from the entire Indian Ocean area so that there is better maritime security. Then, sir, the issue of our fishermen was also raised. I think Sumati ji raised it. Now, I was, sir, in a dilemma when she brought up the issue, because she said that Government of India is giving stepmotherly treatment because Tamil fishermen and fishermen of the Gujarat coast are treated differently. Now, I'm a Tamil elected from Gujarat, and I was really not sure which side of the picture I give, because the other side would react. So I want to give a win-win answer, sir.
वो तमिल के गुजरात से चुनकर आए हैं।
तो सर संसद को मैं ये बताना चाहता हूँ सर, मैं खाली आंकड़े दूंगा, तो it is for the House to judge. And I am taking from 2014 because that is when the Gujarat argument started. So, from 2014, the number of Indian fishermen released from Sri Lanka are 2,835. The number of Indian fishermen released from Pakistan, apprehended off Gujarat coast, is 2,165. So, 670 more Tamil fishermen have been released after 2014. So, I want you to, the honourable member, sir, to be very reassured. There is no stepmotherly treatment. In fact, there is very good fatherly treatment. Yes. I sir, want to make a very serious point here. If there is any government, any leader, any prime minister who has given attention to the problems of the Tamil fishermen, it is Narendra Modi. Yes. It is Narendra Modi, because we have, during his government, set up a mechanism with the Sri Lankans to take up fishing issues. He has himself spoken to the President and Prime Minister of Sri Lanka on repeated occasions. He has asked me to deal with the Minister of Fisheries and other ministers on this matter. And the fact is, sir, that if today fishermen apprehended in Sri Lanka are being released, let us be clear, they are not released because somebody in Chennai is writing letters. They are released because somebody in Delhi is taking up the matter. So I would not like this to become for us. Fishermen are fishermen, please, whether they are in our southern coast, whether they are a western coast, yes, whether they are a eastern coast. We will treat them all equally as our citizens. I would like all members to be reassured on this matter. If I can move on, sir, to my...
will be there.
So I can...
अभी तमिल और गुजरात संगम चल रहा है, बैठ जाइए.
Sir, I would also then move to the next issue, sir, which is the issue which many members raised about whether there should be the consent of or consultation with Chief Justices when specifying designated courts. In this matter, sir, we were guided by the Ministry of Law and Justice, citing precedents. And the precedents are the Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002 and the National Investigation Act 2008. In both cases, special courts were set up. In both cases, this were done with consultation of the Chief Justice of the High Court concerned. So I want to say that we followed that particular precedent. Then we came, sir, to the issue of various ministries. I think members wanted to know, have the roles of different ministries been defined? I want to assure them that there are already standard operating procedures and contingency plans Depending on the situation, Ministry of Shipping has its own plans, and SOPs, Ministry of Defence, Navy, has its own. And our effort in the Ministry of External Affairs is to coordinate it. So again, I would like the members to be assured that this is being taken care of. Then, sir, I would like to, with those broad remarks, I would like to address some specific concerns which individual members had made. I will start, sir, with Shri Manish Tiwari ji. He had sought an amendment to the title of the bill saying Maritime Anti-Piracy Bill, not Anti-Maritime Piracy Bill. I want to assure him that is part of the government amendment. It has been taken care of. Regarding the Combined Maritime Task Force, I have already spoken about it. We have weighed the pros and cons and decided to become a member. He spoke about what we are doing to ensure greater security in the Western Indian Ocean and Arabian Sea. I want to assure him that we are working with our various partners in the region, and our maritime cooperation there has become very much stronger. The death sentence issue I have already dealt with. He had referred to the word, there was a word, sir, in clause 4 on the word counsel, and he felt the word counsel was not the right word. We agree with him. The government amendment has replaced counsel with conspire. Then there was a concern he expressed that under clause 9, Indian nationals on board a foreign ship may have been hurt due to piracy, and we do not have the jurisdiction to try that. So we have removed that provision so that that problem is not there. The presumption issue I have already answered. So in regard to the issues pertaining to the bill, I have responded to the concerns that he has raised. So if I could move to the issues raised by Shri P.P. Chaudhary. He had raised this issue that at where there should be a replication of word aids and abets and procures. But what I have clarified to him is that 3, 4, 5 envisage different levels of culpability, and the punishment envisaged depends on the seriousness of the offence, and we leave it to the judgment of the courts to actually exercise the latitude which the law gives them in this regard. Then, sir, Shri Brithari Mehtab had raised an issue that the presumption should be confirmed by the High Court within 30 days. Yes. So I would like to clarify to him that the presumption is not an unconditional presumption. The presumption has prima facie evidence. Twice the word evidence is mentioned, once the word recovery is mentioned. So our view is that the designated court will not presume about the commission of the crime without those conditions being met. So I would urge the honourable member not to press his amendment in this regard. The second issue was also regarding confirmation by the High Court. Confirmation by the High Court, sentences of lower courts, confirmation by the High Court is only after the passage of a death sentence. So the process, in any case, the judicial review option is open to anybody who is found guilty under any of these processes. So we do not believe that that is necessary. Then he also raised the issue of legal immunity for acts that are done in good faith. This is a very relevant point. I would like to underline to him that this is covered by two provisions. 11A says very clearly, not all arms and ammunition are by necessary regarded as mala fide, that if the legitimate authority carries it. And secondly, 15.1 refers to authorized personnel who are in pursuance of their duties. So I hope that between those two, it will not be necessary for the honourable member to offer his amendment. He also made the point about international cooperation that I have dealt with in my remarks. Then, sir, Ms. T. Sumati ji had brought up the issue of setting up Sessions Court in Tamil Nadu. The designated court, I would like to assure her, will be set up in consultation with the Chief Justice of the High Court, and logically it would be there in all the coastal states. Regarding the effective coordination mechanism which you referred to, I have pointed out that the SOPs and coordination is being done. Death penalty issue I have already covered. The international cooperation issue, I think again I have already pressed. Role of state governments. She had asked for a clear definition of the role of state governments. I would like to inform her that under Article 6 and subsection Article 10(3), both of them clearly assign a responsibility to the state government, which is that the central government, for purposes of this Act, by notification, confer power of arrest, investigation, prosecution, exercisable by a police officer or any under this code or any of its officers or any officer of a state government. So the state government has a very clear role in the enforcement of this legislation. I had referred to the Sri Lankan fishing issue, sir. Then she had also brought up Kachativu and expressed concerns regarding Kachativu. So this is a long pending matter, but I would urge the honourable member when she raises Kachativu not to look on this side, but to look on that side. Because I don't think the issue started from this side of the House, sir. This is a long-standing issue. It is an issue which the honourable member knows because her party has also been in the government along with the party which actually moved the Kachativu agreement. So I think it is best we leave them to sort it out. So if I could move, sir, to the issues raised by Sri Vinayak Roth. The creation of courts on eastern and western seas, my answer has already covered that. Sri Kalyan Banerjee raised two issues. One was abolishing mandatory death penalty, that I have answered. Then creating manpower and capacity for building marine police. I think this is a very important point. It is something which government will certainly take note of and give attention to. Then, sir, Sri Alok Kumar Suman had said that we should have consulted more countries before we drafted the amendment. I would like to share with the House, sir, that the Standing Committee actually looked at a number of other international legislation. And they looked particularly at legislation in Australia, New Zealand, Sri Lanka, and UK, because the legal systems were very similar. And many of these countries already had legislation on the subject. So there was a best practices effort made before we drafted this bill. Regarding, he has spoken about internal coordination, international cooperation. Both are matters which I have already addressed. He's also spoken about creating a capacity building in this country to respond to to piracy situation. As I mentioned, some of this is already in the making, and certainly this, as with our SOPs and coordination, this will improve. One legal point he raised was whether we should focus on extraditing people of Indian origin who are involved in piracy. Sir, the bill which we have moved along with the government amendment does not provide for differential treatment of citizens of various nationalities. So for us, an act of piracy is an act of piracy. We cannot make a separate reference to PIOs in this regard. We have also, the issue of death penalty is also something he raised, I have addressed. Then Sir Kumar Danish Ali Danish Ali ji had raised two issues. One was, of course, death penalty. I have replied to that. And secondly, whether life imprisonment should be for entire life. This is a legitimate issue, but it is not an issue for this House and for the government to decide. It is a matter for the courts to take a call on. Then Supriya Suleji had referred to the fact that there was no mention of cyber attack in the bill. So cyber attack is a very serious matter. It is a very legitimate concern, but it is outside the purview of this bill because this bill is focused on piracy. So there are separate legislation and separate efforts underway to deal with cyber attacks, which is a growing concern. So I have taken note of the concern, but I do believe that this is not a matter to be included here. Her concern about presumption of guilt, I have already answered. Then, sir, Shri E.T. Mohammed Bashir ji had moved for one for the fact the definition of the word vessel should be expanded. I believe we have met his requirements through the government amendment. He has also referred to prosecuting pirates irrespective of their nationality. That also under Section 9 has been met. He has spoken about the costs of piracy and how we will counter it. The cost cannot be quantified, but obviously it's a very serious matter, which is why we are moving the legislation. And he has spoken about government responsibility for countering piracy. We take our responsibility very seriously. Defense and Navy have their SOPs. Shipping has its SOP, and we are moving this legislation. Then, sir, Shri N.K. Premachandran ji is, I believe, moving some amendments. His first concern was that with regard to police officer, that it should not be below the rank of a DSP. So in the CRPC, sir, a police officer, even of the rank of SHO, can make arrest. So we have gone with what is the standard CRPC definition. Similarly, the issue of gazetted officer, whether he has sought to insert the word not below the rank of undersecretary. We have actually deleted the word gazetted. We have just kept officer because different states have different practices, and we want to respect all of them. And the High Court issued a consulting and consent I have already dealt with. He has spoken about the need for, in Section 9, to insert the word in writing for a request. That entire section has been deleted in the government amendment, sir, because of the need. We feel that it will, in a piracy situation, it is difficult to communicate with a ship. So we should actually avoid that and leave it for the authorized ship to take necessary action. His point about substituting the word reasonable opportunity for opportunity, the government amendment has taken care of it. Presumption of guilt, I have already replied. Mandatory death penalty, I have already replied. And regarding a ship situation in Nigeria, sir, it's a ship called MV Heroic Idun. I want to, because a number of members raised the issue, I want to inform them that the crew members have been charged on 3 counts. Their case hearing is coming up on 10th, 11th January. We are providing them legal support. We are giving them consular support, and we will do whatever we can to help them in the circumstances. Then, sir, I come to Sri K. Suresh's concerns. One was regarding the area of jurisdiction. I think the amended definition of jurisdiction, which includes EEZ and all waters beyond the jurisdiction of other states, deals with the matter. The issue regarding the imprisonment, I have dealt with as well. As regards the rarest of the rare and death matters, this too is something which I have already addressed. And regarding, he had some concerns about Indian courts not having jurisdiction in some cases. That has been deleted as part of the government amendments. And he was concerned that how does the law treat a foreign government's naval force? And what I want to clarify is that nothing in the proposed bill will apply to a warship or a government-owned ship employed for non-commercial service. So these, sir, were discussed earlier. Today Shri Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary ji also spoke on the bill, sir. One, of course, he was kind enough to note what he called my activities around the world. I appreciate that very much. I want to inform the House, sir, through you, that I was in New York to chair the UN Security Council, which is a matter of great pride for all of India. And the two issues which came up were the reformed multilateralism and counter-terrorism, both, that is UNSC reform and counter-terrorism, both of which are very, very important and subject of national consensus in this House. He referred to the G20 issue. It is outside the purview of the bill, but I want to tell him that this is a moment when the world is looking for Indian leadership. So if the world values India's leadership, I would urge all sections of India, including... because something is rotational doesn't mean you are not valued. So then sir, sir, in passing, the honourable member also suggested government is indifferent, he used the word, indifferent to China. So I want to say something, sir. If we were indifferent to China, who sent the Indian army to the borders to defend our borders? If we were indifferent to China, why are we today pressing China on disengagement and de-escalation? Why are we saying publicly that our ties are not normal? So we have no problem if there is political differences, if there is even political criticism. I have heard sometimes that my own understanding needs to be deepened. When I see who is giving the advice, I can only bow in respect. But I think we should not directly or indirectly criticize our Jawans. Yeah. When our Jawans, sir, are standing, sir, our Jawans are standing, sir, in Yangtze, in Yangtze at 13,000 feet. Yeah. At 13,000 feet, they are standing there defending our border. They do not deserve to have the word pitai. The word pitai should not be used for our Jawans, sir. Sir, our Jawans are standing their ground, so they should be respected, they should be honored, they should be appreciated. This is not something which is appropriate. So then, sir, let me come sir, come to the bill. One is the penalty, the graded penalties which apply. The graded penalties apply. There's no confusion out here. For certain offences, death can apply. For certain offences, life imprisonment can apply. Certain offences, 10 years will apply. Certain offences, 14 years will apply. The court will decide which of these offences come under which category. And finally, sir, on the bilateral extradition and bilateral arrangement, I think Sri Adhiranjan Chaudhary ji has a very valid point. It is something we have covered under Article 14. I certainly appreciate what he said, that on this issue, the issue of countering piracy, there is a sense of unanimity in the House. So I hope that the entire House will support the bill.
एक बात बताइए,